we have Dan the Man. He's actually one of the foremost experts in the field of off-grid living. His life journey is one of the most interesting life journeys I've ever heard. It's almost Hollywood quality. So I'm gonna let you tell the audience why they should listen to you. So can you describe yourself in one word?
What's up, everyone?
Welcome to Breaking the Grid. This is our first episode. This is the podcast where we talk about off grid living, self sufficiency, and a life without society. So, if you're curious about what off grid living is like, what that even means, or if you're just looking for an educational source to guide you to living off grid as well, that's kind of what we're all about. We have co hosts Dan the Man and other co hosts, Julia.
You forgot the word for co-host.
Huh?
You forgot the term for co-host.
Yeah.
We have this guy and me.
Exactly. But today's episode is just an introductory episode where you guys get to meet us, get to know who we are, what we're all about, and what we have to offer. My name is Julia. I'm a beginner homesteader, so I don't have that much to offer. If anything, I relate closer to you guys than I do with Dan. I've only been self-sufficient for about a year and a half or so. I had just finished college actually, and actually I still had a semester left.
Mhm.
Yeah, I still had a semester left when the pandemic happened. Yeah. In
And kind of
March.
forced you to become self-sufficient in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It
Like most people. I mean, like a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the pandemic was a wake-up call for a lot of people. I mean, I'll never forget it. March 2020, that's like forever. That day is forever ingrained in my mind, as I'm sure it is for a lot of you guys too. That really launched me into the field of questioning what I would do when the world ends and when society collapses. And a few months later, I moved from California to the middle of nowhere in Texas, from the city to the country to learn how to live a much more self sufficient life. That's a little bit about me. We have Dan the Man. He is way more qualified than I am. He's actually one of the foremost experts in the field of off grid living. So he is someone with a lot of credentials and accomplishments to his name. Today's episode will rely heavily on his story. I mean, his life journey is one of the most interesting life journeys I've ever heard. It's almost Hollywood quality.
It's partially is Hollywood quality. I mean,
Yeah.
I worked on, I consulted for shows like The Walking Dead, Doomsday Preppers, Falling Skies, The Colony,
Mm-hmm.
and then Hollywood movies like The Road and The Book of Eli.
Yeah.
So it went from like Hollywood to Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he's got a lot of experience under his belt. So I'm gonna let you tell the audience why they should listen to you. So can you describe yourself in one word?
Um, how am I supposed to do that? Um, I don't have an idea. It's just insanity. Just crazy. It's just
You're
eccentric.
insane.
Yeah, you have to be to go through everything I did and do everything we did.
Yeah.
So yeah, crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, just your early childhood life, I think, was already insane to begin with. You and I, we kind of are cut from the same cloth in terms of the environment that we grew up in when we were younger. You had a whole different journey though, because you were a lot more involved with your community, I guess. Because you were born in Detroit,
Detroit.
right?
Yeah, and yeah, I kind of came out just trying to survive.
Mm,
It was at the time in the late 70s, early 80s, it was the homicide capital of the world. They had more homicides, more killings than Iraq or war zones that were going on. So yeah, I just kind of came out surviving. And just to explain that survival and self-sufficiency are very, very different things.
yeah.
I'm not in any way, shape, or form a survival expert. Don't know much about going in the woods and starting a fire by rubbing sticks together. That's not what self-sufficiency is.
Mhm.
Self-sufficiency is living extremely comfortable outside of society.
Right.
So when we did it, I had a swimming pool inside my bedroom. We were making margaritas out of strawberry and alcohol that we made ourselves.
Right, and he means, so Dan lived off grid,
Right.
completely cut off from society and the outside world for 7 years, and that's what he means by he's the foremost expert in self-sufficiency.
Yeah, not survival.
Right.
But yeah, coming out and living in Detroit, growing up my teenage years in Detroit, we saw a lot of killings. We saw dead people. I remember the first time I saw a dead guy. He was in an alley, had been stabbed a bunch of times, and he was just
Mm,
laying there. You could tell he was dead. And the crazy part of that is that guy sat in that alley for days, 4, 5, 6 days, and nobody called the cops or the cops never came and nobody did anything with it. We
my
passed it every
goodness.
day going to the mall. And
Yeah, I can't imagine what that seeing that does to a child, what it
yeah.
does to your psyche and your mentality.
So it kind of got me in the mood for surviving.
Right, it was survival since birth.
Yeah, surviving, counting on my own self. And
Right. Yeah, I had a very similar background to your childhood. My parents they were refugees of the Vietnam War. So they came here not knowing anything and living in the poorest areas that they can afford and working always constantly. We grew up in a neighborhood full of gang violence and drugs, and I wasn't as involved with that as you were. My parents, even though they were a little bit they weren't always there, they made sure that we didn't get ourselves in trouble. So there's that. I remember being in high school. My high school was called Luther Burbank, but they called it Luther Blood Bank because of all the fights and gang
oh,
violence that happened there. And I remember, I think I was a sophomore in high school. Oh, and there was this kid in my sixth period algebra class. We'll call him T, but T was really quiet and he kept himself a lot, but he was still very sociable. He had a lot of friends and a lot of people liked him, and I liked him. He was a really good kid. And one day he just stopped showing up. I'm sure that's a common thing with your stories too, is he just stopped showing up and he sat right behind me and I didn't know where he went. He was missing for a week or so, and then finally his friends in the classroom started talking and they told me that he had gotten shot in a drive-by. He was not part of a gang. He just so happened to be in the wrong area at the wrong time. He passed. And that was a very common occurrence that happened in my high school. People go to jail because they got in trouble, or they were expelled because they were fighting too much, or they got pregnant and couldn't come to school anymore, or they dropped out, or they died. So a lot of that was part of my childhood too.
yeah, there was 15 of us growing up, 15 close friends. And since we were in middle school or something, and just two of us got out of Detroit alive. Um,
That's not a good survival rate.
yeah, my friend Porter, who's in California, and me. I used to tell the story and say that there was three of us that got out alive, that our third friend was in prison, but he got killed in prison a couple years ago.
Hmm.
So
Oh my
there went
goodness.
that stat too. Yeah,
Gosh.
it's I mean, you see it on TV and stuff and you don't really understand what it's like until you not only go there but live there. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that was Detroit.
Wow, that is insane. So this is kind of where our stories part. You
Drastically.
very drastically, you left the city at a very early age, at the age of 15,
Hmm.
to go live with your father. So you left your mom,
Yeah.
who was still in Michigan. You left her and went to Utah to live with your father in the
Way up
mountains.
in the mountains. Yeah.
Right,
I,
Rocky
I
Mountains.
didn't leave of my own free will. My mother pretty much said, if you're going to stay alive, you need to go live with your dad.
Oh man, so the situation got that bad
Yeah. And I was really heavy into
into that
drugs
lifestyle.
and gang stuff. And so I moved away up in the Rocky Mountains. It was a different type of survival. It
Oh
was
yeah.
hunting and trapping and fishing and learning all those things.
Yeah, did every all the survival skills you learned in Detroit, did that translate to
Not
you?
much. No. There weren't not even a single gang member in maybe in the whole state of Utah, but definitely not where we lived. There was bears and elk and mountain lions and
Wow. So you had to learn a whole new skill set of
yeah,
surviving when you were living in the mountains.
yeah, quickly.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. Okay. So how many years were you there in Utah?
Just a few. I was there my early high school years, freshman, sophomore, maybe part of my 3rd year, and then he moved us. My dad got transferred, and we moved to Texas. So yeah, 3 years I think of learning how to rebuild car engines, how to weld, how to use a hammer and build things, fences and decks, and
Wow. That is incredible. I can't imagine having to survive in the mountains like that.
yeah, and where we were, we got snowed in for the winter. So like once winter came, which was like 6 months out of the year, you didn't come down from the mountains. You stayed up there until the snow thawed, and
Wow.
they didn't maintain the highways or anything, and you were on your own.
So that was like a mini, sus-
Self-sufficient, self-sustainable. Yeah.
right.
Well, yeah, but you stocked up for the winter, you know.
Oh, okay.
You shot elk and preserved all the meat, and you had a lot of you would can your goods, and I remember my stepmom always canning, like, pears and apples and stuff.
Wow. Lots of really cool skills up there. This is a random point, but you told me once that you learned from a Native American
Yeah,
dude
how to hunt
how
elk.
to, yeah,
Yeah,
like you literally learned from the group of people who are experts at
right.
hunting and tracking.
So, up in this part of the Rocky Mountains, which was called, I don't remember the name now, but that reservation was called the Ute Indians, and
Mm,
that's where the word Utah came from.
that makes sense.
And this
Okay.
guy was, yeah, he was, as Native American as you can get. He was a cool guy.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah.
So then once you came down to Texas, I know that you left the military soon after.
Yeah, I think I only spent a year, a little out over a year in my final year in school. Joined the military at 17.
At 17.
Yeah. My,
Wow.
dad had to sign the waiver. I was almost 18.
Oh, like you were a couple months away
Yeah, a
from.
few 4 months away or
Yeah, I get it. That's how I got places too.
something. That sounds ominous.
Yeah. I'm almost 18. And then people are like, all right, well, come into the club.
I got to those places too.
Not the military though. Did not join the military at 17.
I
But
wouldn't suggest anybody join the military at 17
I was just going to
or
ask
18
you,
or 19.
why did you join the military?
It was just a family tradition. It was my dad was in the military. My grandfather was a Marine in World War II. His dad, it just went
Wow.
on. It was expected.
Oh,
My
okay, I
brother
see.
was in the military.
Oh, that's right. Your brother was in the military.
Yeah.
Okay. And what branch of the military did you join?
I joined the Navy, but we never were on any boats or anything unless they were taking us somewhere. We did special stuff for special people.
Oh,
And,
ooh,
yeah, and,
secret.
the thing is that a lot of these missions we went on were you'd think they're so dangerous because we were trained to do these type of special things.
Hmm.
But a lot of these times, they were so far behind enemy line that there was almost no combatants back here,
Hmm.
as opposed to Army and Marines that were on the front line experiencing heavier death tolls. They were in battles all day long, all night long.
Hmm.
When we were dropped in so far in, I mean, we had a few pot shots taken at us, but for the most part, it was safer than being on the front lines with those guys.
I see. So you were not dropped into the front lines. You were dropped in behind the front
Yeah.
lines to do like I'm assuming reconnaissance or
Yeah.
intelligence.
I worked in intelligence. We dropped off beaconing devices. We would shoot lasers at targets, and we would hand off packages and receive packages. That we would get people, we'd take people out.
Whoa,
So we were kind of like, UPS, what the military
a
UPS.
glorified
Yeah.
UP.
We're like, "Okay, you're late 30 minutes. Free shipping on this guy."
That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
So
So then Name I'm gonna assume Navy SEALs? That sounds like Navy
Everything.
SEALs? Oh,
Everybody was
okay.
in there. We had, Rangers and all kinds of special forces.
So you worked alongside Navy SEALs, but you weren't necessarily a SEAL.
Right. I had to go to through the first half of SEAL school, and then the rest of my schools were IT stuff, IE stuff. But yeah, these guys were full beards, civilian clothes. We never wore camos or anything.
Mm.
Wraps, the whole 9 yards. And wherever we were, anybody that asked anything, we were CNN. We're CNN. Where was CNN?
It's the cover
That
up.
was the what we said to everybody.
Yeah, but you had a specifically different cover up. You went to aero uh
Aerospace or avionics school.
avionics
Yeah.
school.
To and we I was actually put in a real P-3 squadron, which in itself is a spy plane. That was where I worked, which was gathering intelligence through audit. These planes, they go up, these P-3s, they go up way high and they just circle at a really slow rate. And we can listen in on conversations from almost the lower stratosphere.
Mm.
We can take pictures of people inside their car, what they're writing down on a pad of paper.
Whoa.
So that was my job, but I had to also have
Like if someone were to investigate you, you can say, "Hey,
if
I'm just an
someone,
airplane
yeah, if
mechanic."
someone were to interrogate me, I could just say I'm an airplane mechanic. And if they saw my files, I actually went through aviation school, so I'd learned all these
Right.
skills,
Right.
you know, and then I would just go in our bay and just sit there all day.
And not do any mechanic
I
work.
didn't do anything, yeah. Sometimes I go out with my friends and like, "Hey, can I hold that for you?"
Yeah.
But nobody knew what we did and nobody knew what we were.
Wow.
Everybody suspected I was, with a squadron called VPU-2, and now it's all decommissioned, and all the spy stuff we did is, I think, public record for the most part, so I don't think I'm actually saying anything that I shouldn't say.
So we're gonna have an episode about all of Dan's secret military work.
That's a yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it would be really fun. But go ahead.
No, that's, so I had a file and had education and I had schooling and I was even seen in these places doing these type of things. But,
Mm,
when it came time for a mission, I
it
would
was
disappear
something.
for a couple weeks and
Wow, that is so cool. Super secretive, like James Bond's kind of work.
yeah,
I'm totally glorifying it. Like he said, he was a glorified UPS driver, but we will get into that some other time. So okay, so the military is also a complete survival, self-sufficient, sustainable like community and mentality on its own.
yeah,
So it's sort of like you went from one survival
next to the
situation to the
next to the
next.
next.
Right, exactly. So what did the military teach you about self-sufficiency and survival?
Um, they taught us a lot about teamwork, team building, how to rely on other people,
Oh,
how
because before that you didn't rely on other people when you were in Detroit and
right, we
Utah?
didn't there wasn't too much teamwork in this kind of
Oh,
stuff.
okay, I
In
see.
Utah, we were completely alone.
Mm.
But yeah, how to overcome any kind of obstacle, how to believe in yourself. And then they taught us to some degree how to think and problem solve in stressful and chaotic
Huh.
environments in real time quickly.
Mm.
So I I could think and figure out things and problem solve in emergency situations really
Mm.
fast.
Which is critical
That
when
was
you're
that was the main reason I was put into some of these
stressful.
missions. It was my mission. It was my mission pack, and I had all the information I needed to make changes in it on the spot if we had to do something different, which we never really did. But
Mm.
that's why I was employed with them as well,
Gotcha. So how long were you in the military?
almost the whole 4 years.
Okay. So after the military, you were honorably discharged and then you started working for Boeing,
Hmm.
the NASA branch of Boeing.
Yep.
So how did you find yourself working for NASA?
I wanted to get a job in intelligence because after you come out of the well, in the military, we had secret clearance, which there's different levels of clearance: confidential, secret, top secret. I think ultra or something like that.
Mm.
And everybody coming out it has secret for, I think, 4 years or something. So you can try to get a government job or something.
Mm,
Just try to help you out while you're transitioning into the civilian world.
I see.
And so I was trying to get a job with like the Coast Guard or something, working intelligence. But at the time, there wasn't really that much any jobs at all. And these jobs are like Snowden jobs, research, a lot of listening, it was just the same stuff we did. So I couldn't get a job there. So I got a job with Boeing Aerospace because I also had on paper all my aviation training, schooling, and experience.
Your resume looked
It was
perfect.
packed. Yeah, it was great. And they came in and interviewed me, and I said, "Oh yeah, sure, I can do all of that." They're like, "Your resume is awesome." I'm like,
That's
"Yeah, well."
yeah. Yeah.
So I went and working for Boeing, I worked for a little group inside Boeing called Phantom Works, which is Boeing's branch of NASA. So
Mm,
anything that has to do with NASA is through Phantom Works.
wow.
And that does get you into secret stuff and, confidential stuff. So I had to have that clearance. The good thing about that was we didn't really do anything aviation-wise. We did aerospace stuff.
I don't know what the difference is.
Aerospace is in space,
Oh, okay.
and aviation is just airplanes, and
Oh, okay. I didn't
so
know.
so if they would have put me in an aviation field working on, say, 747s, I wouldn't, replacing landing gear, I would struggle with it. I'd be slow, it'd take me a long time, I'd read the manual a lot, but I didn't have to do any of that. We were designing, systems for the International Space Station.
Oh, wow.
And then on top of that, they sent me to engineering school. So I was learning what I was doing as I was doing it.
What? So you came in not as an engineer. You came in as
Technician.
a technician.
Yeah.
Okay.
And quickly they just said, I guess they had a lot of spots open. They said, "Do you want to be an engineer?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Sure, I'll be an engineer."
You pay me more? Sure.
Yeah, a lot more. And so they sent me to UT for engineering, which is
University
mostly
of
just all
Texas.
physics. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I got into Phantom Works. My boss was a colonel in the Air Force that was directly employed by NASA. So he was my boss.
Wow.
NASA was my boss, but Boeing cut my paycheck.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Okay, so left the military and then you went to Boeing. Did that prepare you for like off-grid living
Yeah, we
or?
did a lot of so up on the space station, everything has to be self-sufficient. Yeah,
Mm,
you don't get to go to the store and buy some food. You don't get to have your waste go through a cleaning plant. So all the water systems, all the food systems, all the oxygen systems, waste systems all had to be self-contained and self-sufficient. So I learned a lot about
mm,
like permaculture system. I worked on oxygen scrubbers and I worked on the waste recycling system.
got it. Wow.
Very, very high level stuff.
Yeah.
Waste.
So glorified janitor.
Yeah, and I went
Did,
from glorified UPS to a glorified janitor.
that's great. I love it. But you picked up a lot of good skills. Like you went to engineering class and you learned how to create all of these self-sufficient systems, which
Mhm.
was critical in your later years. You didn't know at the time,
Right,
obviously, but it
right.
was that knowledge was invaluable.
Yeah, if there's a road that people are on in their life, I was definitely on my road.
Yeah, you were. You went from Detroit surviving to Utah surviving to military surviving, and then your peak was
Making things for other people to survive.
right. Wow,
Yeah,
you're so right.
it just kind of worked out that way.
Wow. I didn't have that
You were
road.
bouncing all over the place and then back to this one again?
Yeah, it was not a straight line for me. When I went to college for mathematics to learn how to teach. So I had no intentions of building self-sustainable systems
Or working for
or
NASA?
yeah, I don't have any survival skills at all.
That's very true, she doesn't.
I don't. I didn't know how to swim.
Yeah.
He taught me how to swim
Ride a
literally,
bike?
yeah, last year.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't learn how to ride a bike until I came here, but I'm doing it, you know?
Mhm.
Like my
Rock climb
path.
too.
Yes.
We have a rock climbing wall in the house, and
Yeah.
she learned how to rock climb, and she couldn't even, like, walk down a slope. She didn't know how to walk and shift her weight and stuff.
Yeah, it was bizarre to me because like growing up in paved city sidewalks, everything's just flat, you know? And so when you're out here and you're having to walk on an incline for hours, that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And you don't I didn't have those muscles built up for that. And my brain had to kind of get used to it that I'm not walking on a flat surface. I mean, it sounds really like
Yeah, like,
minuscule,
for all of
but
us that, like, spent our entire childhood playing on hills and stuff, we're looking at her like, what?" We can't relate at all, but it's completely true, like, people that don't do things when they're kids, when they grow up, they have a really hard time with the most simplest things, like climbing over a fence or something, there's no way.
oh, yeah, I didn't know how to climb over a fence. Like, I didn't have the upper body
Yeah, it's so
strength.
strange.
Yeah, it was and my brain couldn't wrap around the fact that, oh, you can lift yourself up and throw your body over,
Yeah, yeah,
Everything was always my brain was always questioning what I was doing once I got out here.
yeah.
But, yeah, so my path wasn't as clear cut as Dan's was because he just went from survival to permaculture, whatever. I was like sheltered, didn't know how to do anything, and went to college and was gonna do the 9 to 5, have a family, settle down, all that traditional modern society stuff. But I'm here and he's here. And even though we had two different paths, we somehow ended up in the
Here
same
together
spot.
and we got here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how, different paths lead you to different places, and we interact with people along the way.
Mhm.
It's very strange.
Yeah, definitely. So I was on my path to the 9 to 5, and Dan currently at this point in his life journey was also a 9 to 5. But what happened for you to choose to quit the 9 to 5?
Like the final straw. Okay, so at the time I was very into math and engineering and physics, and my brain was very calculated and logical. And I, like most of you, didn't really like sitting in traffic for 2 hours and waiting in line at Walmart or sitting in the lobby of my dentist and for an
Being on
hour,
hold for an hour on the
being on
phone?
hold for hours. And actually, that I got a story about that.
Uh,
You want to hear it?
yeah.
Okay. So, do you guys want to hear? At the time, we had or hard lines. We didn't have cell phones or anything.
I don't even know what that is, but
A hard, it's just like a,
oh, like
yeah,
a landline?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It
oh,
has
oh,
it's
okay.
a phone, it has a curly Q cord going to it, and
Okay, I'm not that young.
yeah, okay.
I know what that is.
Alright, so, my phone actually had a timer on it for some reason. It was like a digital display, and you could see the number you dialed or see who's calling you,
Uh-huh.
and then it could tell you how long you've been on the phone for some reason. And so I called, like, probably the phone company or something to dispute something on my bill or something,
Mm.
which is ironic because this has happened on the phone with the phone company.
Yeah.
So I call them and they say, "Okay, we'll transfer you to the right department. Please hold." And I sat there on hold. And I sat there for about I sat there for 45 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes. And keep in mind, this is normal. Like,
Yeah.
you usually at this time, you were usually on hold for up to an hour, and that was the public service that you get. So I'm on hold and I'm getting sick of it. And at this point, normal people just hang up and call back again,
Mhm.
which I did a million times. And I said, I'm going to sit here and see how long they put me on hold, keep me on hold. And so I waited and waited and waited. And it went up to, like, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half or something, maybe 2 hours. And the lady comes on finally, which I can't believe she actually came on.
Mhm.
I thought they just completely forgot about me. And she says, and I just voiced because I was so angry. I'm like, I've been on damn hold for 2 hours. You've kept me on hold. And she said, "I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry. I will get you to the right person. I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
Please hold."
Oh, no.
And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This is not insanity. This is not insane for us. We accept this, and
We
this
do.
is okay somehow. This is okay. This is not a physical attack on me for doing this to me."
Yeah, we don't think that, "Oh, these people are stealing hours of my
Yeah,
life." We just say, "Okay, I'll stay on hold."
you stole 2 hours of my life.
Yeah.
So I said, "Forget this." But instead of hanging up, I put the phone aside and I actually had to go to work or start getting ready to go to work. And I went to work and I came back. And of course, I came back like 12 hours later and I came back, she's not on the phone anymore. They probably answered sometime.
Mhm.
But I looked on the timer and it said 3 hours and 50 minutes or something. And I said, "That's it. I'm not gonna do this my whole life. I'm done.
Mhm.
This is the straw that broke the camel's back." And from that point on, I wanted to find out how much of my life is being stolen.
Mhm.
I wanted to calculate it.
How much was on hold?
Yeah. How many hours do I sit on hold, per year? How many hours do I sit in the dentist's office waiting? How many hours do I sit in traffic? How many hours do I sit in the line? How many hours am I not living life, living in society? And so I kept track of my average time in traffic, my average time on hold. And after a few months of getting a general idea, I calculated it per year and then per 85 years, which is probably about as long as I'm going to live. And it came out to be like 11 years,
Wow.
11 years of my life I'm not going to live. So instead of living to be 85, I'm going to live to be 74.
Wow.
And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. I'm done. In fact, I encourage all of you to make the same calculations. Anybody that's interested in leaving society or becoming more self-sufficient, make your calculations and see what society is doing to you. And so I said, I'm done. From that point on, we started planning to leave.
Oh my goodness. That was the pivotal moment for you
Hmm.
when you decided, I'm no longer going to wait to start living. I am going to start living right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Even if it kills me, I'm going to start living and I'm
Wow.
going to live life.
Wow. Yeah, every time I hear that story, it like gives me chills because it's something that most people, like you were saying, we don't do the calculations and we just accept that this is the way that life is. And that's just, I'll just live this way. And this to us is living. Being on hold is living for
Yeah.
us, you know? We
Yeah.
have such a low standard for living that is living. And I my pivotal moment wasn't as inspirational as yours. It's probably very similar to the rest of everyone else. It was during the pandemic, like I was saying before, and it wasn't a revelation that came out of me like it did for you. It was sort of forced on me. It was like, boom, pandemic, end of the world. What the heck are you gonna do now? That was that was definitely pivotal for me. Because I was, almost done with college and I didn't know how to do anything with anything. And all of a sudden, we're hit with the end of the world. And it was a really eye opening moment for me. And it's also when I decided that I'm going to leave California and leave the city life, it was also a little bit freeing. Did
Yeah.
you feel that sense of freeness?
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a huge load that was taken off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And I didn't the horrible thing about that is I never even knew I had that load on me the whole time. Like, I'm sure
Yeah.
the viewers who walk around every day don't feel like they have a load. And then you leave and you're like, "Whoa, I feel like I'm floating,"
Yeah.
you know? You
Yeah.
felt that same.
Yeah, I did. I really did. It just, like you said, I had all these stressors and load on my shoulders, and it was just nice to not have that anymore. And that period lasted briefly, but it felt really good to have
In the
that
moment.
period.
Okay, now I'm just
All
back
right,
to the
now,
grind.
yeah, now what I do.
Living.
But, I guess my next question for you, which would probably it applies more for you because you were making a lot of money at the time and you were living the high life, the capitalist lifestyle. If you felt all of this overbearing stresses of society, why not just get a PA, or like a secretary or I don't know,
Yeah.
someone to help you organize your life? Why leave society as a whole?
Um, I guess I probably could have done that. No, I should have done that.
And that's where my brain should have went to.
If I was kind of I was not kind of, I was a lot, butthurt. I was very, like, I had hard feelings towards society, and I was very offended by what they were doing to me. And not
Oh,
just on my time, but how they were treating me and how, We don't get asked to play this game.
Mm,
We're just born into it.
yeah.
And nobody nobody even knows they can leave. Like my parents would say, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, or you can just leave society if you want.
Mhm,
The teachers didn't teach us that. What are you going to be, Johnny? A doctor, a lawyer, or are you going to leave society and become a hermit?
mhm.
So because they lied to me so long, and because of how they treated me and what they did to me, I was very hurt by it, and I didn't
Mm,
want to have anything to do with them anymore.
okay, I see. And it was just sort of your natural path that you're headed towards
Yeah,
anyways.
that road was still going, even though I didn't know it. That road was still going down that.
Yeah, it just sort of made sense with what you were feeling and thinking and all of the skills that you've
Yeah,
acquired and experiences that you've acquired throughout your life. It was just sort of the way to
yeah,
go.
absolutely. But I didn't want to have anything to do with them anymore. I didn't want to
Yeah,
have anything to do with coworkers, bosses, even friends and family.
yeah.
Like I was so done. Um, if you haven't checked it out yet, check out my series called Think About It, and you can see every episode shows something of how teachers and the media and our government and even friends and coworkers and your parents, how they lied to you. There's so many things that they lied to you about. And I didn't like the lying and
Yeah. Dan is a natural truth seeker.
yeah,
Yeah. And I'm a natural lie seeker.
liar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I am. I like being ignorant. I like the
yeah,
comfort of ignorance,
yeah,
and I will gladly pull the wool over my own eyes so that I can feel good.
yeah.
And
Go ahead.
and Dan's the complete opposite. He's gonna rip everything out of his way so that he can seek the truth no matter
Yeah,
how hard the life will be for him.
and tear everything and everybody apart in the process.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I wouldn't wish knowledge and the truth on anybody, even though I have a Think About It series that tells everybody the truth. You should tune into that now. Yeah, it's a hard life.
Yeah,
It's
it
rough
is.
when you're living in a pink bubble with flowers and around you, like most Americans do.
Mhm.
That's a much nicer life.
Mhm.
There's a lot of times that I wish was as strong as Cypher and gone back into the Matrix and
Mhm.
could have just forgot about it all.
Yeah, we will refer to Cypher a lot in this in
Yeah,
in our podcast because it is like that. It's like you unplugged yourself from the matrix
yeah,
and you went out there and you lived off grid, literally off the electrical grid, and
yeah,
it was incredible. And I compare myself more to Cypher. Like you're like Neo and I'm like a part of me still wishes that I was back in society. And I don't think I will ever act on it, but I really don't know, to be honest with you. But so you're saying that life out there was hard or that you led a hard life because you were constantly seeking truth. Was it hard out there when you actually left?
yeah. Just like the Matrix, living inside this underworld in the Nebuchadnezzar was hard. It was dirty. It was, you sweat a lot. You cut your hand. I have cuts all over my hands all the
Yeah.
time. You're always damaging yourself. The physical drain it's more than I'd ever felt in the military or in Utah or at Boeing. And then there's the mental and emotional. Nobody thinks about that. If you're thinking about leaving society, you're probably thinking, I wonder if I can split wood with an axe or build my own house.
Mm,
But the bigger strain, the bigger obstacle was the mental and emotional toll it took on us.
mm,
And that was something that I had prepared very little for.
mm.
I prepared the physical, I prepared skills and knowledge, but the emotional and mental was something we lacked.
Yeah. And you didn't do it alone. You went out with your ex-wife,
Yeah.
who we will try not to name.
Yeah. She deserves her own privacy now.
Yeah.
She went through a lot with me. She had a hard life too, and she got through it. And now she kind of plugged back in the matrix again.
She really did. Oh
Yeah.
man. Yeah, her story, I wish we could have her here on the podcast, but
Yeah. We could have a whole story just about her journey.
yeah, I would love to hear her perspective of it. Which by the way, I don't think we mentioned in the beginning, but we're a couple. And when he talks about, going off grid and things that he did with his ex-wife, it's not me, it's someone
Yeah.
else. So yeah, we are romantically involved.
Thank you. Applause.
Yay! So it wasn't easy out there for you. But you did it for 7 years.
Yeah. I worked more out there. I worked more after being retired than I ever worked in the workforce, in the work
Wow.
field. So if you're going out there to not work as much and kind of chillax a little bit, I would stay in society. It's a much more
Mhm.
comfortable life. But if you're going out there for other reasons, like to get away from society, or you don't believe in the way our country's going or something, or that you think that our systems may collapse in the
Mhm.
near future, COVID, then this might be an option. But
Mhm.
understand you're going to work hard.
Yeah, definitely. So you were out there for 7 years with your then wife, and then you returned to society. What sort of pushed you to return to society?
We didn't decide to. It was I didn't want to at all. It was kind of forced on us. Let's just say that the government highly frowns on people who leave their system of control, black helicopters,
What?
uh, yeah,
That
invasion of privacy, interrogation. We'll just leave it at that. W-
that's ominous.
we can get into it more in a different topic, but yeah, black helicopters on the horizon,
Oh, wow.
and then that was it for us.
Wow, I can't believe that that happened.
That I think that night or the next morning, we left and literally jumped the crossed the river to Mexico,
Oh,
and I
wow.
said, I'm done with this country." And, but we swam the other way. You know, the illegals come this way, we swam 2 minutes. We didn't swim, actually. We drove a four-wheel drive truck through a low spot in the river and, crossed, and
Right.
my ex-wife is actually from Mexico. She'd never been to the United States before, so it was very easy for us to just go back and just bounce right back into it.
Right, because you're where you went to live off grid was
Oh, yeah, I should
West Texas, border of the US and Mexico.
yeah, my property was about 3,000 acres or something. Part of my property bordered Big Bend National Park, which is one of the biggest parks in the United States. Another part bordered, Mexico, and then another part bordered what's called the Badlands. And there's actually a TV show on National Geographic right now called The Badlands, and my property was inside the Badlands,
Mhm.
which we can get into more later, but
Yeah, we'll have an episode strictly on what life was like out there for Dan and his ex-wife.
in the Badlands.
Yeah, in the Badlands. So very invasive situation happened, and something else happened too. I remember you were telling me that like there's another factor to this with the side of
Yeah,
things.
so, okay, well, that kinda led up to this.
Oh, okay. So now you guys are across the border to
No,
Mexico.
no, we're
Oh,
still on the property.
okay.
Neither one of us wanted to leave, but we had 0 communication with the outside world. For 7 years, we didn't step foot off the property. Nobody stepped foot on the property.
For
We
7
we
years.
never went to a grocery store or, a bank or anything. No phone, no internet, no TV, no communications at all
Goodness.
with the outside world. And to give you an idea, the nearest neighbor was like 3 hours away driving, and the nearest town or city was like 5.5 hours away. So we were,
Wow.
even if we wanted to, or even if somebody else wanted to, they could not get to our property
Right.
unless they were in helicopters, black helicopters. In fact, actually, the first time we ever went to look at the land, the realtor flew us in by helicopter
Oh,
because
wow.
there's not even roads going to our property.
Oh, wow.
So it's out there. And so we never had any want to be connected in any way, until around the 7-year mark. And she started feeling that there was something wrong with her mom. And so we came out and we went to an internet cafe a few hours away.
Can you describe what an internet cafe is?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I guess that's not around anymore. No
No.
internet cafes. So an internet cafe was like when internet started becoming popular, but nobody had phones at all. And very few people had I don't think even laptops were out yet, but we had desktops and you could be hooked up on the internet and you could chat with each other through Yahoo chat or something. And these, like a coffee shop or just like a dry cleaner or something would have internet, put a desktop computer there and charge people by the hour to be on their
Mm.
computer. I guess it's like the business center of a hotel. You go in there, they got a
Mhm.
printer, a computer, you can get online, and
Right.
so we went there, and she emailed her mom, and her mom came back and she said, "I have cancer and it's terminal, and I have less than a year to live."
Wow.
And so went to Mexico to be with her mom. I went with her and I wrote guides and books and stuff during that time and published them and telling our story and tell other people how to do this. A very rough version of one of my books now.
Mm.
But somehow CNN had find out about our story and they did an interview with me on TV. And then when we went back to our homestead, we started being open again with society and being connected with society.
Mm.
And we started taking in people that wanted to learn our knowledge that we'd gather.
Man.
And that lasted for about 6 months until the black helicopters came,
Oh, wow.
and that ended very quickly. And
That sucks.
yeah, so that was the other situation. Then her mom died, but she got to see her. And when we went out there, we never planned on seeing any of our family again. Like,
Mhm.
we were out there for life. Like, we're gonna die here. You can dig a hole right here and bury my body here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another question about living off grid. I can understand if something were to happen to society and one would have to know how to live on their own. But what would you say to some of our viewers that would say things like, he's crazy? Why would anyone want to leave society? I love my iPhone and my ACs and my comfortable bed and whatnot. What would you say to them
Um,
based on the experience that you had when you were out there?
we didn't live in a cave. We didn't walk around with lanterns. We lived better and more comfortably than most Americans do today. Like I said, I had an indoor pool. We were sipping margaritas all day. To not contradict myself, this is after we developed all the systems that maintain themselves. So, water catchment systems, slope valves to automatically give the water, food and water to the animals,
Okay, I see.
built the
So,
house. So once we were all done, there was a huge building phase, lasted years. And once we got all that done, then we were able to just sit out on our deck and fly a kite or sit around, read
oh.
a book or drinking margaritas or something.
I see. So you had to establish these systems. And then once the systems were self sufficient, you were able to live the life
Yeah,
that you
that we had
wanted
dreamed
to.
to
Yeah.
for the last couple of years of being
Yeah.
out there. But yeah, no bills, no debt, no mortgage, no taxes, no expenses of any kind, no crime, no
Wow.
pollution, no traffic, no noise, no being on hold, no people, no stress. I didn't even own a clock or a calendar to be able to tell what day or time it was.
Wow.
Who wouldn't want to live like that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Sounds like heaven.
yeah, that's when you compare it to the other side that we've been talking about this whole time, this one's starting to sound pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I completely agree. It was hard for me the first year and a half or so, but once you kind of fall into it and you have your systems established, and again, I didn't do anything like what he did. I'm just the first sort of level of self-sufficiency, which is just sort of homesteading, like we grow our own food and we don't depend on the electrical grid, and we have a septic system, well water, all that stuff. But once we have those things established and the construction phase is gone, it does become very dreamlike. So going back to what we were talking about before, I just had to ask that question because I think a lot of people are sort of wondering why put yourself through all of that hard work, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, I mean, that's why we did it, but
Right.
somebody else is most likely gonna have a different,
Answer.
answer. It might be because COVID scared the crap out of everybody, and they think that, the decline of our by the way, I predicted COVID in my book, Apocalypse: How to Survive a Global Crisis,
Yeah.
which came out in 2013.
2011, I think.
2011?
Right before
2012? Yeah,
2012. Yeah.
2011. And it actually names COVID as a possible, viral outbreak,
Oh.
because at the time, I had been inoculating our goats for COVID. Like, COVID is a big disease a virus that affects your goats,
Uh-huh.
and so you had to give them boosters for that. I knew a little bit about COVID, and I went to medical school. I did my pre-med at UT. And could see that that is a very likely I named some other viruses too, so I
Mm.
shouldn't say I just predicted that one. I
Mhm.
predicted several. rabies being another one. But yeah, it's in the book. I even predicted like toilet paper would become a commodity. I went a little further instead of just storing and bulking up on it. I said that people would use it as commerce.
Oh, wow.
Like, here's a thing of toilet paper. Give me a chicken. You know, A- and and that's because anything that we're addicted to, we would pay a lot for. So we're addicted to toilet paper, obviously, shoes, cigarettes, alcohol, even pornography, like
Mm.
magazines and stuff. If there was a major collapse, nudie magazines, save your subscription because they're going to be worth a lot of money. I don't want to get too much into that. We can go into a whole episode about that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I actually,
absolutely.
so yeah, if they're scared about COVID or they don't like the way our government's going,
Right.
any number of reasons.
So now we're at the point where you return to society, but you didn't come back to the US. You decided to go to Mexico. When you were in Mexico, you started a nonprofit relief work organization.
Yeah.
What prompted you to do that?
So was it the Red Cross? Maybe it was Crux Rojo, which is the Central American version of the Red Cross. They contacted us and asked if we would come down to Haiti
Mm,
after the earthquake and implement some of our self-sufficient means there. When a disaster hits, like Katrina or Haiti, major earthquake in California, you'll get the first responders that come in: Crux Rojo, China Relief, USAID, Red Cross, the UN. They are all major first responders. And they save lives. They drop pallets of water, they drop pallets of food, and they set up what's called tent cities:
mm,
hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of tents for people.
mm.
And then they pretty much check out and go on to the next disaster.
Oh, okay. So they come in there just to make sure that these people are immediately safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I
And
see.
once they're immediately safe, they move on to the next disaster. And that's how it needs to be.
Yeah.
They're needed somewhere else. What happens next is what's called second responders come in. And that was us. That was my nonprofit. And I would take anywhere from 12 to 30 people, volunteers from all over the world, into these places. We were in Haiti after the earthquake and both cholera outbreaks. We were in Colombia for the floods, Venezuela during the economic and government collapse. We were in Micronesia for the tsunami. We were in New Orleans after Katrina. We were in Japan after the meltdown.
Fukushima.
Yeah, we go in there and we set up longer and even permanent means of sustaining yourself. So in Haiti specifically, I brought my design for compost toilets to the Port-au-Prince City Corps of Engineers, and they built thousands of my compost toilets,
Wow.
put them in homes. And the other thing I did is I had a hydroponic system, and they implemented that in each little township. So they had a
Oh.
community hydroponic system. So that's what we would do. And we did it all over the world.
Yeah. So you went in there, and now that these people's society has literally collapsed, you went in there and taught them how to be more self-sufficient,
Yes.
because up to that point they have been relying on society's systems and
Yes. Their septics, their sewer systems goes somewhere else and somebody deals with it. They
Mhm.
get their food. They don't know how it's just provided to them.
Right.
Somebody fixes their car for them. Here in the United States, probably someone mows your lawn for
Yeah.
you. We're dependent 100% on society.
Wow. Okay. So then how many years did you do your nonprofit for?
We did that for a few years, maybe 5 years.
5 years or so.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I started experiencing what's called caregiver burnout,
Compassion fatigue?
compassion fatigue.
Caregiver fatigue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't take it anymore.
It's a lot.
I
It's a
couldn't,
lot.
yeah, I couldn't take seeing the suffering. The suffering is what got me.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of death in Mexico. We were in Mexico for the cartel wars,
Yeah.
and I did a lot of relief throughout Mexico. And I saw a lot of beheadings, executionary style beheadings. One time they pulled over our bus, put us all in a row, kneeling, and they were asking everybody questions. And then they finally got the two people that they were looking for, and they shot him and killed him.
My
We all got back on the
goodness.
bus, and we kept going to Guadalajara. So I saw a lot of death. I had seen a lot of death. Since I was born, I started
Yeah.
seeing bodies in Detroit and stuff, and in the war and everything. But the suffering's what got me. The people suffering, I just couldn't take it anymore. And also at the time, we had seen animals dying a lot. You'd see pets, dogs and cats that were trapped in the houses. They're trapped in this in a prison, and the floodwaters are rising, and just a lot of dead bodies of cats and dogs, and nobody was doing anything to save these animals. So there was an opportunity for me to transition from helping people to helping animals, which is what if you don't know anything about the castle, we live on an animal sanctuary that I've created, and we save animals from zoos and circuses and private collectors, animals that are too old to perform. They would put them down, or too young and they can't find another zoo or something. Or somebody hits a deer or something. We take not really dogs and cats, but we that's what we do here. And so I needed that transition.
Because you were feeling the burnout
Yeah,
of,
I just couldn't take the suffering anymore.
oh
The
man.
screams, the crying, kids dying in front of me, and
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you still deal with the repercussions today. It's hard for him to be around children, even if they're just laughing. You developed a lot of PTSD from your relief work, which most people don't really talk about. They really glorified the relief work, which is great. Like
yeah,
we honestly, it's great. Like, I give you all the credit in the world for everything that you did for those 5 years. And to all of the people out there right now saving lives, boots on the ground, trying to get people into a better place.
yeah, for sure.
Like, we give you all of the respect in the world. Because no offense to the rest of society who sit behind their little laptop and,
Talk about it.
talk about saving the world or pretend like what they're saying is saving the world. People like you guys are actually out there, actually saving the world. And so it's incredible what you guys do. A lot of times we don't think about the repercussions of seeing all that suffering and death. So it's really hard on it really is hard on you and
Yeah,
everyone else out there. So thank you for sharing that. It's something that not a lot of people talk about.
yeah,
Okay, so that got really deep.
yeah. Let's move on.
Uh, so, uh, so you're so right now you're based out of Mexico and you're
Not
doing.
right now, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
not right now, right now.
Yeah,
Okay, but in Dan's
timeline.
timeline, he's based out of Mexico and it's sort of his headquarters,
Yeah,
and you're going to different countries to do relief work. And then after the caregiver's fatigue, you decide to come back to the US. And that came out of the PTSD actually that you started to develop.
yeah.
Yeah.
When we were in Mexico, it was getting harder and harder for me to go on these 20-hour flights and stuff across the world.
Yeah.
So I was staying back more and more, and my team, all my people were going out, including my ex-wife, and they were doing it. And then one day, I just started panicking, and it never stopped. Like, if anybody's had a panic attack, yeah, they last a few minutes maybe. Mine was lasting 24 hours,
Oh my
48
goodness.
hours, 72 hours. It was a nonstop panic attack. And we thought that there was something medically wrong in my brain or something, some aneurysm or something.
Mm.
And so we went to the doctor in Monterrey, and he sent me to a psychologist, and she gave me a little vial of clonazepam. And I shouldn't give me the vial. She just put a few drops in the water, and I drank it. It stopped the panic attacks instantly,
Mhm.
instantly. Clonazepam, thank gods for benzoids.
Oh no, we're not trying
No, we're
to
not
like
condoning, but kind of are
encourage.
too. But they helped. They did.
Yeah.
They but that was a result of everything I'd seen in Detroit, everything I'd seen in even in Utah of us killing elk and the military, and
Wow.
then my relief work. It was not just the war or my relief work. It was my whole life of seeing death and suffering. And she says you have PTSD. And at the time it was called Gulf War Syndrome, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it was called. And everybody had it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I don't have that.
Yeah.
Because that's just like everybody claims to have it. And I, great, give me a paycheck from the VA, but I want to know what actually is wrong with me.
Right.
And she says, no, you have PTSD. So my ex-wife said, we need to bring you back to the United States and get you treatment and get you around your
Support system.
support system, family and friends, which weren't much of us. I'm sorry. but they weren't much of a support system to begin with.
We love
So
you guys
yeah, we
though.
love you. But that was the decision. I didn't want to come back.
Yeah, because you leaving Mexico is a hard concept for me to wrap my mind
Yeah.
around because anytime that you talk about Mexico, it's fond memories, good people, great food, you love the culture. You're fluent in Spanish. This big white man who out of nowhere just speak Spanish fluently. I'm sure it was a hard decision for you to leave.
She pretty much she drugged me back. She drugged me and drugged me back, kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
Actually, she drove all the way back because I
Oh,
refused to come back.
yeah.
I literally refused. Like, I'm not driving. I'm
Yeah.
not going back. And then also what happened to us, why we left, you know?
Oh, with
So
the invasion of privacy.
yeah. So the whole thing about Mexico being great. By the way, Mexico's great. Everything you see on the news is another lie by the media and by the government to a certain point. There is things going on, but it's like somebody coming from I tell people this. It's like somebody come from France or from England or something and going to Detroit or going to Compton and saying, "Oh my God, the United States is so violent. They're killing each other in the streets here."
Yeah, it's like the school shootings, the mass
Yeah.
shootings, like it's so publicized globally
Yeah.
that someone from France would be like, I don't want to go to the US.
Yeah.
There's mass shootings
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm living right now in the US and there's no mass shootings
Nobody's
happening
died at
right
my
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. There's no kids walking into schools and shooting everybody. The rate of child abuse is very low. The rate of divorce rate is very low.
In Mexico.
Mhm. Even the homicide rate is very low. So in a lot of ways, Mexico is a lot safer than the United States.
Mm,
So that combined with why I left the United States, I didn't want to come back.
mm, I
Um,
see.
but she brought me back and I went to the VA and they put me in these group psychological sessions with I'm a combat vet, but these guys are real combat vets. They saw like I saw the horrors of war maybe 20 times. Went on a couple dozen missions. They saw it every single day they were out there. And that's really takes a toll on you. And so I
Hmm.
was in group with these guys and they were telling the same stories as I was telling as far as waking up in the middle of the night screaming, almost shooting your wife when she comes in because you think it's a enemy combatant,
Goodness.
yelling at your wife, mistreating your wife, abusing your wife, and then the panic attacks, anxiety. So at that point, I said, "Oh my God, I have PTSD."
Oh, that was when you finally
Yeah,
accepted
when
it.
I heard their stories, these guys that are real combat vets, they had the same experiences with this
Sickness.
sickness as I
Yeah.
did. That's when I knew I had PTSD.
Wow. That is a scary realization when you're diagnosed with anything. I
Yeah,
was diagnosed with disordered eating earlier this year, and that I don't know if you remember
yeah, yeah. Took a
how
toll on you.
depressing that was, but yeah, when
Yeah,
you realize
you went through a horrible time with that too. And even
yeah.
before that, before you were diagnosed,
Yeah, it
it was
was
a fight, you
yeah,
know?
it is a fight and it's a constant what is wrong with me kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And then when you figure it out, I expected to feel relief, like, oh, I finally find out
Yeah.
what's wrong with me. But it became like, oh, okay, there is something wrong with
Yeah.
me. And now what do I do?
Yeah.
Do I have to live with this for the rest of my life? Which often, unfortunately, for people who have PTSD, it is something that you have to live for the rest of your life. Doesn't mean you
Yeah.
can't have a good quality of life, you can still cope with it. You'll be okay. But it is something that unfortunately a lot of people in that community will have to bear with for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So for all the PTSD vets out there and or just people suffering from PTSD, we feel it and we feel you and we're sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. We relate.
Yeah. And okay, so anyways, we
Yeah.
keep getting really deep. So now you are back in America. So you are, what are you doing now? You're doing like, you're teaching self-sufficiency now, right? Or you're beginning to write your book, Apocalypse.
No,
You
no,
didn't start,
I wrote Apocalypse in
oh,
Mexico.
you wrote it in Mexico.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it was published while we were still in Mexico. We
Oh,
came back here, I think in 2012, maybe 2013. I don't remember.
okay.
I was starting to write off the grid.
Oh,
breaking the
breaking the
grid.
grid.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the time, it was called DIY everything.
Right.
And it was just an accumulation of all of my knowledge and everything we learned how to do off the grid, everything we learned how to do in our relief work. So I was writing that, and we were built. I was building this place,
Uh-huh.
which I built completely alone.
And by this place, he means the bunker, which
Yeah,
is this massive monument of a structure
yeah,
for all of your end of the world wet dreams.
yeah, yeah. It's the walls are 2 foot thick concrete, 30 feet high. Our front doors are 27 feet tall, double solid steel doors. Any combat vet out there that has PTSD, you can come here and you'll feel very safe in here.
Yeah,
Um,
it's far away from society. Everything you can imagine for the end of the world
yeah, we have
is here.
12-foot perimeter fence with barbed wired and
Hmm.
anyway, I started building that place.
This
Yeah,
place.
this place, and I started trying to recover my health and go on that road, that
Mm-hmm.
journey.
Yeah, and it's still a journey, to be honest with you. But we'll have an episode specifically about mental health and an episode specifically about the bunker
Yeah,
and everything that went into it. But it took you another decade to build this place,
yeah,
right?
almost. I think it was 8 or 9 years.
Right. It took you 2 years of designing
Hmm.
blueprints and whatnot. And at the same time, you were also writing Breaking
Yeah,
the Grid.
breaking the
So
grid.
you were kind of going in between writing Breaking the Grid and building the bunker.
Yeah, and we were accepting animals too.
Oh, yeah. And the animal sanctuary.
So
Okay.
we were taking in animals, and I was here alone most of the time because my ex was still out doing relief work around the world. We still had our nonprofit in Mexico. We kept our properties in Mexico, and I was going back and forth.
Oh,
I would spend several months there and then come back here. And
yeah.
so I was alone most of the time here.
But you were keeping yourself busy, though. You
Yeah,
were writing a book, accepting animals, and building the bunker. And it was
yeah,
just sort of a conglomerate of things that you were doing at
yeah,
the time.
yeah, yeah. So that took about 10 years, which would have taken probably 10 months if I had 20-man crew.
Absolutely. Like he built this place practically on his own. We have a few helpers
Yeah,
here
I had
now.
some fat friends that come over and hold things for me while I did things and, would help me weld all the beams. That took a lot of welding.
Yeah.
Help me hang in drywall, and I'm very grateful for them. They know who they are. One person in particular who I taught how to wire plugs and wired all our plugs, he knows who he is. Um, he does not like drill bits. But anyway, yeah, if I had 20 guys, it would have taken me 10 months.
Mm.
To be honest, like, there's not a single board in this place. There's not any wood at all in here. And even though it's all concrete and metal, it cost me probably 10 times less than if I would have done a traditional stick frame house
Mm.
the same size.
I see.
It was a lot easier, a lot quicker. It's a lot stronger,
Yeah.
and it was a lot cheaper.
Yeah, it won't be knocked down by hurricanes, won't be burned down by
No.
wildfires or anything. So it is, like I said, it's a monument of a structure. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's like a pyramid in
Yeah.
backwoods of East Texas.
Yeah. And beer for millions of years.
Yeah, it will be here forever.
Yeah,
Honestly.
you touched on it. It's flood proof, hurricane proof, fire proof, black mold proof. And I just didn't like the idea of killing a bunch of sentient beings, stacking their dead bodies around me, and living inside their decaying, rotting corpses for the rest of my life. That
Gosh.
idea just wasn't doing it for me.
Well, if you put it that way,
Yeah.
that's kind of disturbing.
Yeah. It's very disturbing.
Yeah.
And we don't question these things. We
Oh,
say, "Bob has a wood house, so I'm gonna have a wood house too."
yeah.
And that I just didn't I thought that was crazy. And wood is a very cheap we can go into a whole episode about that
Yeah,
too.
yeah, absolutely. Anyways, okay, so
So that's why we built the bunker.
right. So the bunker, and you were writing your book at the time, and the book was just published last year. It finally reached its final stage last year. And can you tell us about your latest book and how it encapsulates all of your experiences? And
Yeah, so, again, everything I learned being off the grid, everything I learned at NASA, everything I learned hunting and trapping in mountains, how to preserve meat, how to raise silkworms, collect their silk sacs, separate their silk, clean the silk to make silk thread, to make string, to make rope,
Yeah.
um, all the way across the board to how to blow glass, and every single thing there is that anybody has ever done, past or present, was in the book.
Mm.
Anything that anybody can do, you can do too, just as good or even better.
Mhm.
And people don't think that, but these people are no different than you are. You might not be a painter, and this guy's a great painter, but you can paint a picture just like he does. It'll just take a lot longer. Some people have an easier road to it, but you could build a computer if you wanted to, or rebuild an engine if you knew how. So that's what Breaking the Grid was. It was literally how to do everything, DIY everything.
Mm.
And it was 15,000 pages.
15,000 pages?
15,000 pages was the original manuscript.
Do you know how big a book that would be?
Yeah, it'd be like that big.
Yeah.
And the publisher said, we're going to break this down to it. I think it's a 10 or 12-part series, each book having either 300 or 500. I think it was 500 pages per book. So we started doing that. And then they said, it's still too big. We're going to do one book, 500 pages. Think.
Yeah.
And that was too big. So now the book, which is published, thanks the gods,
Mm.
is about 300 pages
It went from 15,000 pages to
to 300.
300 pages.
Yeah. And well, a lot of the pages, not to embellish, but a lot of the pages were photos and
Uh,
drawings
yeah,
and designs. It wasn't all writing. I don't think a human could write 15,000 pages in their life.
I see.
But it was just all the content that I had acquired. It was all condensed into 300 pages, and the title of it changed from DIY everything to Breaking the Grid, how to buy nothing, make everything, and live sustainably. So yeah, here it is. Check it out. It's my life's work.
The link will be below.
So that was yeah, that was Breaking the Grid.
Yeah, and it's a great read. It's not, even if you're not looking to, leave society or be more self-sufficient, and you're just like me who just wants some arts and crafts to do, you can definitely find that in there. I remember one summer I was collecting the mohair off of the goats.
Yeah, collecting all the shed air.
Yeah, all the shed
Yeah,
hair, and I was following the instructions in the book to make
yarn.
yarn.
Yeah,
Yes, I was trying to make yarn.
we
Yes,
did
and
make
then we
yarn.
did make yarn.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah. So it's a lot of fun. It's for everyone, beginners, experts alike, because again, it goes from just something as simple as making paper from recycled paper to building a whole solar oven. It covers a variety of skills and experiences and lots of things for you to take a look at. And like Dan was saying, the book is covered in colorful images and blueprints that he designed and notes that he has taken over the years when he was living off grid. And it's an incredible, very detailed book. You can definitely tell that an engineer wrote this book.
yeah. Where Apocalypse, How to Survive a Global Crisis, is designed all around how to survive. It's also personal notes taken in those locations. So I saw how people started looting, and I saw how people were stealing gas, and how,
Mm.
I saw all the worst things that we do
When you were doing your relief work?
doing the relief work. It was very easy to predict if a situation like that occurred.
Mhm.
This is exactly what's going to happen. So I have over 100,000 hours in the field of
Mm.
that. Yeah, that book is actually what led me to work on these different television shows,
Mm.
because they want someone like, let's say, the TV show ER. They actually get a real physician, a real surgeon,
Mm.
and they consult with him to make the set, to make costumes look exactly how they are supposed to, or as close as possible. So when they're doing a TV show about the end of the world, they want to know what their costumes would look like and where would they get water. By the way, if the world ever ends, there's 35 to 40 gallons of potable drinking water in every single house inside their hot water heater. So
Yeah, there's a little tip for you
there you
guys
go.
there.
But all that's in Apocalypse. But that was the survival book,
I see.
whereas this was the
Self-sufficient book.
self-sufficiency book.
Ah, I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, Dan's great at, like, I can't watch a TV show with him because he'll pick away at how things are so unrealistic.
Yeah.
We were watching something the other day about the end of the world. What was it called? Jericho, I think?
Yeah, Jericho.
Jericho,
It's good.
yeah.
Good show.
Yeah, great show. one of the mayor or something had a belt buckle that was all shiny and
Yeah,
polished and stuff,
yeah,
and it's the end of the world, guys, and
yeah.
he's got these nice shiny belt buckles. All of the backpacks are brand
Clean,
new,
and
clean,
the gloves were all clean.
yeah,
Like,
freshly ironed.
how do you have clean gloves if you're touching things with them and you're not washing?
Yeah, and that belt buckle is supposed to be eroded and
Yeah, it's supposed to be all rusty and
right, and so
yeah,
it's just funny to watch the end of the world shows with him. He's just like, "That's not how things would actually be."
yeah. And that's what they ask me. They say, "How does the belt buckle look?" Maybe not
Mm.
that specific, but how's the belt look and how's their clothes look? Where's it going to be ripped at? Should we rip them or should we, you
Oh,
know, like your
wow.
butt is going to be really dirty,
Mm,
because you're always sitting on dirt and logs and stuff.
right.
But you're not, and your knees too will be dirty. But like the inside of your calves aren't going to be dirty. So you
Mhm.
can't just go in wardrobe and make everything dirty.
You're right, you can't just
That's not believable either.
yeah,
Yeah.
dunk it in mud, yeah. Okay, I see.
So yeah, that's the stuff they asked me.
That is so cool. That is really cool, very Hollywood.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've sort of caught everyone up to where we are now in life. Looking back on your extraordinary life journey, what are some of the most profound life lessons or insights that you've gained? Because you're what, 45 now? So,
Yeah, I'm getting pushing 50.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say you hear the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Mm,
Again, a lie to a certain point. I would say what doesn't kill you makes you weaker,
mm.
because each one of these things that didn't kill me, without me knowing it, unwittingly made me weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker
Oh.
mentally, and to the point where, and a lot of anybody with PTSD or any combat vets will back me up when I say, mentally, I'm like a little baby.
Mm,
And you too, you can back it up. There'll be
yeah,
times where I'm bawling my eyes out like a little baby curled up in the fetus position
yeah.
because of all these things I went through that didn't kill me. Yeah, nobody tells us that, or they tell us a lie about that.
Mhm.
That's something I kind of realized. Also, that everything was a lie. Even going to war over there was a big lie. And it always is, though. It's always, but that's why they target people that are 17, 18, 19. When you get 35, 45, you realize, hell no, I'm not going over there and doing that for you.
Yeah,
A bunch of old white people want more money, and
yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Trying to exploit other countries, yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, when you're young, you don't
Yeah.
realize that. You're naive.
And then the third thing I'd say was anybody, anywhere, everywhere can do everything that I did just as good or better, and can do anything anybody else can do just as good as better.
Mhm. Like me.
Yep. Just like, and that's part of the reason I realized that is because people like you and you that I took out of these places that didn't know anything and never been out of the country could do all these things. So don't sell yourself short. You can do any of this stuff. You really can. I'm not trying to hype you up and say you're great. I'm just telling you the realistic side of this is that you can do anything.
Right.
We're humans, just like these other humans. There's no difference between us.
Right. And that's one thing that like sometimes I get really discouraged because Dan makes it look so easy. Everything that he does, like almost everything just comes very naturally for him. He's very gifted physically and mentally, like intellectually. So sometimes it is discouraging when I can't do it as easily as he can. But at the end of the day, I still did it. It
Yeah.
might be a little bit harder for me
Or a lot harder.
or a lot harder, but I can still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've accomplished so much in your life. It's like you lived like 10 different lives in your one lifetime. Can you share some of your proudest moments or accomplishments?
Well, the books,
Yeah,
I'm very proud of the books, especially our new one. The publishing company did a great job on it.
they did.
They
Yeah.
really did. My editor did a great job. They took the ramblings of, and I'll go back to the very first question you asked me, a crazy person,
Yeah.
and turned it into very easy to read, step by step
Yeah,
instructions.
it's great.
They did a great job. So
They
my
did
books for
great.
sure. Living off the grid is an absolute thing I'm proud of and a big, huge accomplishment. The relief work on one side of it, I see it as a big accomplishment.
Yeah,
Um,
you
ma-
helped a lot of people.
yeah, I see, and that's the thing is that a lot of these relief workers that go out there, they don't go out there for recognition or anything.
Yeah.
So I think we see it differently than everybody else sees it. I think it's very glamorized, and they put us up on a pedestal like, wow, you guys are amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't really see myself that way, or they don't see themselves that way. So I'm not. as proud of that stuff as other people may think I should be. On the other side of that, I saved a lot of people, but I was responsible for ending the lives of a lot of people too
Mhm.
during the war and stuff. So that kind of cancels each other out. So yeah, I'm not as proud as I probably should be if I just had a clean slate going into relief work.
Would you say that doing the relief work was sort of a redemption?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think most of my life since going to war has been trying to atone for the sins and trying to just to punish myself for for all the things that I did. And I think I'll punish myself for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
I think we all do or will. At least most of us soldiers would
Yeah.
will.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know that's it's a very vulnerable thing to share on camera. So
Yeah.
thank you. I really appreciate that. So again, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. So that kind of catches us up to where we are at now. So Dan, you were sort of born and pushed into survival, living in the suburbs of Detroit, homicide capital of the world at the time, and then you left that situation and went to the mountains of Utah and had to survive out there. And then you joined the military and also had to survive out there, and then you gain a lot of experiences working for NASA, and then you left society for 7 years, and you returned going to Mexico doing nonprofit work. And then you returned to the US, started writing all your books, building a bunker, and running an animal sanctuary. So that's kind of where we're at now. Do you have anything for the future? Anything that we should be looking forward to?
Yeah, we are definitely more books.
Ooh,
I started my newest book, which was actually published before Breaking the Grid.
yeah.
So it seems like it was the second book, but it's actually my newest book.
Hmm.
The End Survivors is a fictional approach to all of my knowledge and what I saw out there,
Mm.
put into a story format. So more of the End series. There may be or may not be a TV show in the work that might
Ooh.
actually be shot right here in the bunker.
Is it end of the world?
I can't say
Oh
anything about
no!
it, but,
No spoilers.
yeah, I
No
can't
spoilers.
like, legally, I can't say anything about it. Yeah, and then I don't wanna spoil it for anybody.
Yeah, right.
Of course, we're accepting more animals all the time. Our family is really growing, and also we are in the middle of the beginning stages of building a commune here, an intentional community here, where we can work together and live together and create together. So, any like-minded people out there?
Yeah, we'd love to hear everyone's stories.
Yeah.
Whether you're looking to join the
Yeah.
commune or not,
Yeah.
we just want to hear your
For
stories
sure.
and know that there are other people who are trying to, be more self-sufficient, or people who have actually left society and came back.
Yeah, if there's anybody that has ever done what I've done, please get a hold of me because I've done lectures in most of the universities in the United States, seminars all over the world, and I've never met anybody, as far as I know, the only person that has ever done what we did, complete 100% cut off for as long as we did, and come back to tell about it. I'm sure there's people that are
Oh,
still doing it.
yeah, they're out there
They're out there
still
still.
living off the grid. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But in our generations, and then maybe they did a lot in the hippies generation, in the 70s and 60s, but in our generations, I haven't been able to meet somebody. I'd love to like compare notes
Yeah.
and collab on something.
Yeah, you're the only person I know who has had that experience. I don't know
Yeah.
anyone else. I know people who are like homesteaders, like I am,
Hmm.
like,
Grow their own
yeah, they grow
food
their own food
or
and
off the grid. They have solar panels, but they go
yeah,
to work every day. Or
yeah,
yeah.
right. Or they're still in contact with their family, or
Yeah.
they still run to the grocery store if they need to,
Yeah.
things like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who's completely cut off from society.
I would love
Yeah,
to hook up with somebody that has done what we've done and compare notes and maybe work together on something.
yeah, absolutely. So that's our first episode of this podcast. I
We
hope you
did
guys
it.
enjoyed it. We did it. Oh my goodness.
Celebrate.
Yay. Woo.
Hey, come here, celebrate it.
It was a long one, but
Yeah.
it's just to
Mm.
kind of get you guys, just introduce us to the audience, let you guys know a little bit about who we are, mostly about who Dan is, because he has way more credibility than I do.
Yeah, you can actually like see some of the work. I've done and online and looking
Yeah.
up and stuff. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm not just a lunatic rambling on a podcast, even though I seem like I
Like a lot of people nowadays.
yeah.
No offense.
Yeah.
People like me who are literally in their mid-20s who have no life experience trying to give life experience to other people in their
Advice, what
20s.
they should do, and
And I'm just like, what is
yeah.
going on here?
I
Anyways,
don't have any makeup tutorials for you, though.
no, 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 no. First episode, thank you guys so much for
Thank
tuning
you.
in. Next episode, we are going to dive into the day-to-day life that Dan experienced while he was out there, living off the grid, the challenges he faced and some of the solutions that he came to while living off the grid, where he went, a whole bunch of things, a lot of things that you guys are probably wondering and questioning about. We will try our best to dive into that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And Julia's the one that, like, does all this, like, she handles the everything. So I'm just finding out about this, what our next episode's gonna be also,
Yeah.
just like you are.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. Sounds good.
Yay! Yay! Thank you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode, and we will see you guys next time.